I had to make sure I wasn't dreaming when he said what he said. So, but I'm
here, of course, joined with Nick Bodkins of the Bodkins Show. Nick. What is going on, everybody here? Hopefully everybody survived the week 1 weekend already. We still got one game going on right now, the Seahawks and Broncos. We're bringing that GameCast up during the show so you guys can see exactly what's going on. Right now it's kind of one-sided. Not exactly what I expected the one side to be on. So we'll bring that GameCast up a little later. My name is Tanner Dawson. I'm with the Sports Buffoons. You can also find me on Settling the Kingdom, our Chiefs exclusive channel. It's one of the best channels out there right now because we get just talk to mainly Chiefs on that channel. So, but yeah, make sure you guys go subscribe, like to us here. This is also on Let's Talk Sports because Let's Talk Sports. Without Let's Talk Sports, I wouldn't have all these guests, these great guests coming to play. Shout out to Dan for sure. So, but yeah, guys, we have quite the lineup today. No Nick Bodkins. Bodkins is out doing some family support here. Rooting on his kid who's playing little sports right now. So can't blame him at all. Hopefully they score 30 and call it good. So, but he might hop on a little later. All good. Make sure you guys go check out his content at the Bodkins Show as well. I know he has tons of stuff lined up here this NFL season as well, especially UFC as well on the weekend. So go check that out. For today, guys, quite the lineup. We got Ryan Larson coming around the corner here. We're going to talk some fantasy recap, fantasy topics coming in for the day. Then we're going to talk with Jim Biringer, getting him back on the show. We're going to talk some hockey. Hockey's starting up here. So we got to get some updates there of what's going on. Then finally, we'll wrap up with Jonathan Grishman, as we always do for the MLB playoff update coming into play. There has been some changes. Some teams have pulled ahead at times. We'll exactly see what's going on here come time, but it's quite the great show going into play. Again, if you guys haven't, please like, subscribe, and follow. For me, guys, for fantasy here, wise, it was a blast to go about that. I'm pretty sure if this game follows suit, what just happened? Jerry Jeudy. Yes. All right. I'm looking at 5 wins now. That's for sure after that play. So that's exactly what I like seeing. So we got Jeudy going to play as far as Kansas sports betting. It was the first NFL weekend for Kansas sports betting. And I'm looking to be up, hopefully by the end of this game, at least $80. So, I mean, that's money to play with for next week, and that's all I got to say. So, super excited for it. Great weekend, great college ball as well. My Jayhawks are 2-0. Like, how can I not like that right now? And they beat West Virginia, another in-conference team. So, hopefully they keep that going this weekend because I would love to see that. So, without further ado, guys, enough of me. Let's talk some fantasy football here as we watch a little GameCast here. We'll bring in Ryan Larson, fantasy football for the people. WAGME Fantasy, Roto Baller, and Let's Talk Sports. Ryan, welcome in, dude.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to come on, talk some fantasy with you after everybody is tilting heavily after week 1 with some of these poor performances from guys we all thought were going to be fantastic.
Right? Man, some of them were big bummers. I can tell you that. Luckily, I felt this year doing all my live jabs, I prepped probably 900 times more than I normally do with fantasy football this year. And I think that helped me out tremendously because I am still in contention in most of the games, even despite a 0 burger here, a 3-point off the guy I kept to lose a second rounder on, in injuries, Mitchell going down, Eli Mitchell. So I felt pretty good there coming into play that, hey, you can still balance it out and hope for the best, even despise a lack of performance coming into play.
Yeah, and I think what really needs to be remembered by everybody is this is week 1, man. It happens it happens every single year. Like these guys that a lot of fantasy analysts like myself, we take our flags and plant them on. It's not always going to come out week 1. I mean, I've gotten so many message about Travis Etienne because I've taken him in either the 3rd or 4th round of so many of the leagues that I'm in, and I'm just getting bashed because James Robinson came out and looked good for the first time any running back has ever looked good off of an Achilles injury. Thanks, Washington, for not being able to stop that. But
right, yeah, he didn't Cam Akers that game, so that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So these players that we're all kind of worried about, a grand majority of them just wait and see. Week 1 is an anomaly for most of the
Mhm.
NFL season. So, I mean, even Sammy Watkins didn't have his big breakout day like he always does. So it's already changing the way that it always does for week 1.
I mean, looking here too, the guys that kind of led the way in point totals, at least so far through, at least through this game here. You know, my guy Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, the 1-2 combo that we always talked about. Those guys finished with Patrick Mahomes with 34.9 in PPR and then 33.5 for Josh Allen, both with big games. Probably, honestly, the two cleanest teams of the whole weekend that continue the whole entire game through.
Yeah, and then you look at the number 3 in some formats, like my format for my home league, and it's Carson Wentz. So
Yeah.
like, this is what we're talking about, right? These the heavy hitters, some of them just don't produce. I think it was 4 of the top 5 running backs that were drafted in every single league on average. They just did not finish inside the top 12. And that's just going to happen. Is everybody going to go sell Derrick Henry because he didn't finish inside the top 12? God, I hope not. You'd be stupid to do so. But if you do, please contact me in my league and I will trade you for it.
Look, man, I did have an emotional breakdown yesterday on some people. Right after Dak got hurt, CD finished up with like 3 points on me, and I went out and I threw a bunch of trade offers out. Granted, none of them accepted because I was going for big name players to pair with Stephon Diggs, but I did get emotional for a minute, and I think that's something that you got to take from week 1 is don't get emotional yet. Give it a little time, especially guys like CD, who's going to get force fed the ball even more now because Cooper Rush is. I mean, that's where he's going to go. He's either going to go Tony Pollard or CD at this point. So I think that's the big thing. Taking the advice after week 1 is take a step back, breathe, and if you can get a good move, go for it. Like I was trying to trade for Devontae Adams. Like, why not? Right? I'm gonna throw it out there. I was a Cowboys fan. Let's go. So, but obviously nothing happened. So, but yeah, I think it's just a lot of emotion coming into play on a lot of these fantasy players as well.
Yeah, the funny thing is, and I heard this when I was listening to the Fantasy Footballers podcast earlier today, and they're 100% right. You go on to social media, and 50% of the people had to win these games, but that 50% that lost is about 95% louder and takes up all of social media with all of their frustrations of, CD Lamb burned me, or I'll never draft Dak Prescott again, or why in the world did I ever think about taking CMC? I mean, like we said, it's something you got to just kind of, you let the emotions come out on Sunday and then you just bury them and heading into the next week and just let it go.
All right. So I do want to know some of your recap. Like, who are some of your big hits that you predicted as well that got, the expected points that you were expecting?
Well, I'm going to pull up my rankings so that way I'm speaking truthfully here. I know for a fact one that I really swung and missed on was Michael Thomas. Now, the reason that I had Michael Thomas drop down so far in my rankings is probably about 15 minutes before the game started, a very prominent beat reporter came out and said that there's a likely chance that he's on like a 20 to 30 snap count share because they were worried about the injury that he was going in to the game with a hamstring injury. And of course, that did not happen. Michael Thomas had a fantastic game, 2 touchdowns, 8 targets. So that one, when I look at it, it's going to completely burn me as I go into looking at these rankings. I guess I'll start at the quarterback position. I had Mahomes at 6, probably not my best move of all time. I had guys like Lamar Jackson, Herbert. Jalen Hurts was fine over him. He finished right behind him, not that far off. Wilson's ahead of him right now. We'll see if that continues. And then I still had Trey Lance up there towards the top 12. That was a bad move. I should have moved him down after. If you guys didn't see how bad the Chicago game was
bad
in terms of weather, like the weather in that game hindered everything. It wasn't just hindering the passing game. The rain came down on the field where they're running through puddles. And I think that's one of the big reasons why Elijah Mitchell went out with that big injury. Like, the game should have been postponed or something, moved to a different day, found a way to wait until later in the evening. But the NFL just never does anything like that. So that one is one that I was well off on. I guess I could say I was off on Carson Wentz. I had him at 21, but I think everybody kind of had him ranked real low this week. So let's move on to the running back position. See how bad I
Well,
screwed this one
there,
up.
there goes the Seahawks. Geno Smith to Parkinson for a touchdown, 25 yards.
That's 2 tight ends that absolutely nobody has on their roster from the Seahawks that scored a touchdown.
0.
Yep. I mean, maybe some Will Dissly shares in dynasty leagues because I know that he was a pretty decent flyer for teams that really needed a tight end. He's going to get picked up on tons of waivers this week in dynasty leagues, so that's one to watch for if you're in those. And of course, it's not Noah Fant. I think Noah Fant's caught 1 ball in this game.
2. He's got 2, and it's a 2 I watched.
He's got 2 catches. Okay. Well,
yeah. So we'll go back to right. Exactly. That's the one that I need. So running back wise, looks like led the way with Saquon and Taylor, of course. But what about Cordero Patterson, man? He came out of nowhere and actually did put on a show yesterday against the Saints defense.
Yeah, the Patterson one's interesting, not only for the fact that he looked good going into coming out of that game against the Saints defense that was, they were thought to be, if you're looking at last season, one of the tougher run defenses in the NFL. It's a team that you didn't want to target one of your flex option running backs and throw them in your lineup with. And that's exactly what Cordero Patterson was heading into the weekend, kind of like that low end RB2, high end flex option. Big thing is Tyler Algier was a healthy scratch. He does not play special teams. So they went with the 4th string running back because he's a lead kick returner. And then Damian Williams was supposed to be in there taking over most of the carries so that way they could do what they wanted to do at the end of the season last year and rest Patterson and use him as a pass catcher because they needed it. That did not happen because Damian Williams went out after, I think, like 10 snaps. And then after that point, it was all Cordero Patterson because they had no other running back on the roster that they trusted to run the ball. So I think when you look forward in terms of projecting how he's going to be used, Algier will he'll get the nod as long as Damian Williams was out. And there's really no indication on his injury, which usually isn't a good sign. You usually hear something about these injuries by this point.
I know.
You have not heard us. I have not seen a single report. No beat writers on Twitter for Atlanta have said anything about Williams' injury. So there's a good chance that Algier's getting the nod next week. He'll eat into that carry count. But regardless of that fact, they've got to feel pretty good about Patterson, at least to open the season. They might give him more work than you're going to see down the stretch. So don't be crazy. I'm a guy who really touted and hyped up Tyler Algier. It was not to start him in week 1. I can tell you that much right now. I didn't do that on any of my rosters, but I've seen him dropped in tons of leagues. And I think he's someone that you need to sit and stash because as the season continues to wear on, Patterson's not a spry chicken. He's going to wear down if they continue to give him 15 to 16 carries and then add on the, 5 targets a game that he's going to get.
No, I agree on that because we saw it last year with Cordell Patterson when he started getting more and more touches, then he started getting banged up more, and then you had to see other running backs coming to play. So Tyler, you're right. He's going to get his touches in. Look at that though, 10 snaps, right? Coming to play though, Damian Williams was involved heavily in that offense on top of Cordell Patterson. That's a guy Tyler Algier should be able to fit right into that play and not be used more coming into play as a rookie.
Yeah, if he can take over the Mike Davis role from last season and actually look good, unlike Mike Davis did, I think that he's going to have some flex appeal during these plus matchups that are going to be coming up for Atlanta. Looking at some of the top 10 that I got in here, biggest miss for sure is I have Aaron Jones at number 8. I had it. Well, actually, by the time that the game started, the expert consensus caught up to me and they put him at 8. Just a horrible game for the Packers offense in general. And it's one that unless you had AJ Dillon, which I hope you did, and you were able to play him, he was the only offensive piece that actually produced for fantasy purposes. You just got to kind of throw this one out when it comes to Aaron Jones. The only thing that you're going to have to worry about moving forward is if Allen Lazard continues to miss time, the Vikings, as good as the Vikings looked, that defense is not a terror when it comes to defending the pass. They're actually one to target. They gave up the most fantasy points to the wide receiver position last season. And by most, I mean of all teams in the NFL. So they didn't really improve it that much over this offseason. It's just a product of Aaron Rodgers has absolutely no chemistry with the weapons that he's got, and it showed on the field, and they were able to capitalize on that. So I think, nothing to worry about when it comes to Jones. This will probably be one of his worst games of the season, and he'll continue to work into the passing game and find his way to fantasy relevance once again. But
Yeah.
it's definitely something to watch.
We talked about this last week, right? I mentioned it to you. Are you worried about Aaron Jones having a bad first game? And I was like, I don't know. Like, the Minnesota ain't no slouches. They're a better team than the Saints from last year. So, and then all of a sudden, here comes Aaron Rodgers out here. First pick to the NFC North division, and since 2019, coming to play, and then that team just gets torched. I told Bodkins his best secondary in the league is going to get torched, and I didn't mean like that, but man, they got torched. So, but yeah, I was really surprised to see at least Aaron Jones not even really do anything, did jack on that play, because I expected him to be Rodgers' scapegoat, and he wasn't even Rodgers' scapegoat going into play, which is kind of concerning. But Tunyon was there too, though. I guess active. I didn't expect him active for a couple weeks.
Yeah, a lot of people went and picked up Tunyon. I had so many questions when it came to like which tight end should I stream? Should it be Tunyon or Everett or just a bunch of these names like Irv Smith and stuff like that. I shied away from Tunyon, and it worked out because he didn't have the greatest game. But the fact that he actually led the team in targets, he led the team in targets over all the wide receivers. The only one that had more targets at the end of the day was I think AJ Dillon ended up with the most targets. I got to look at that stat line again, but that's good moving forward. If you went and picked up Tunyon, yes, he disappointed you this week, but if you need to stream him again and Lazard is out, it shows that Rodgers is going to go to the guys that he has the most chemistry with. And on the field, other than Randall Cobb, he's not the same caliber of player anymore, so he's not going to garner the target share. Tunyon's the guy that he has the most rapport with so far when it comes to his receivers. So, he's a decent stream. They play Chicago on Sunday Night Football this week coming up. It's the ultimate get-right game for a team that just got shellacked by one of their division opponents. And apparently Aaron Rodgers owns Chicago. I don't know if you knew that. He came out and said that, the last time he played Chicago to all the fans.
In the Barstool Stool Sports podcast stuff or some other ones. Yeah, they talked about it.
Yeah. So he should come out and have a fantastic game. I got it right on Rodgers this week. I put him right outside my top 12, and the ECR had him inside the top 12, and that worked out well for me. So it's going to be interesting to see how he performs next week. If he finishes outside the top 12 again, I don't think people are going to have any sort of faith playing Rodgers in any sort of plus matchup until he proves that he can actually look good with this new look passing offense.
Right. And you were right. AJ Dillon did lead the team with 6 targets last week, or I guess it's yesterday. The next 2 up were Dubes and Aaron Jones at 5 each. But obviously they didn't do enough to put any damage into play. So AJ Dillon, just with him and his rushing, was the big one. And then Tunyon with 5 as well.
Yep. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this works as long as Lazard is out. And from everything that I've read and seen from beat reporters, I don't know if he's going to start this week either. I mean, they have a little bit longer to wait because it's the night game on Sunday. And I would assume that he probably won't do anything and they won't try to get him to do anything until probably Friday in terms of limited participation in practice. But if he got stepped on like they're reporting, we saw what it did to Saquon Barkley last year. His ankle ballooned up to the size of a watermelon, and he wasn't able to go for, I think it was like 6 weeks. So they're downplaying that injury big time.
Yeah, that's trouble. But hey, look at Saquon though. Bounce back game against the Titans defense that usually squashes the run. Came out with 33 points. I know Mikey Basement Brewed Fantasy Football talked about Barkley being eventually. His best prediction was Barkley being the 1 overall, essentially by the end of the season. I mean, what are you thinking here after this Barkley performance this past year yesterday?
I did have him ranked higher than the ECR, so I did win that one, thankfully, too, just to want to get that in there. But yeah, no, so with what I saw from that game, it looked like he's finally healthy. He didn't look like he did at any point last season, and I think that's something that fantasy managers who went out and took the risk to draft him need to hang their hat on. You can have confidence that he's going to be perfectly fine as long as he stays healthy. He looks like the explosive back that we saw when he was playing with Eli Manning. I still don't know if he's going to get enough targets to finish as that number 1 overall running back. But at the end of the day, you've got a top 5 asset that you were able to draft in the second round. And if you drafted early in the offseason, you were able to get him in the third round. So your team is probably sitting pretty at this point. I love the way that he looked. I love the way that the offensive play calling was. I still think it was held back a little bit by Daniel Jones. I think they should have won that game a little bit more favorably, if you will. But they're not going to switch off of Jones at this point. Dayball is the best play caller that they've had since Coughlin, and I don't even think that Coughlin was a good play caller in the first place. It was more of Eli Manning, and that team just meshed well enough to where the offense was able to be game managed and run perfectly fine. So I think it's just a positive always round. There's a good chance now with Dallas losing Dak Prescott for 6 to 8 weeks that they have a chance to make a run for that number 2 spot in the division.
Mm-hmm. Now, in your rankings, does the aggressiveness of an offense play an effect into any of the rankings? Because yesterday I thought the Giants play calling was very aggressive, especially towards the end of the game. I mean, heck, DJ out there taking that snap and that hit just to get that first down to be able to get a chance to win the game like he did. So, I'm just curious, does that play an effect in your rankings?
It does a little bit, especially when you look towards teams that like to take those risks and take those fourth down plays, like LA last year.
The Chargers.
You bumped up some of those guys, especially guys like Eckler, as the season started to go along. Once you watch what the formula was, it was literally almost every single time we get into a fourth down situation, as long as it's not over 3 yards, we're going for it. And they converted most of the time. And that just leaves the offense out there to produce more for fantasy purposes. So if they continue, if the Giants continue to be ballsy like they were and just keep attacking on offense and taking those risks, it's gonna play out well for guys like Barkley. And I was actually impressed with how some of the receivers looked, like Sterling Shepard, where this dude's coming off of an Achilles injury from last season, and he looks great. Like, I know he didn't do a ton in the stat line in terms of total receptions. He only had 4 targets, 71 yards and a touchdown on 2 receptions. That's a fantastic day for a guy who's coming off of an an Achilles injury. So he's someone that made my waiver column that's going to be out tomorrow over at Wagme Fantasy. It's definitely a guy that I'm looking at to add in some leagues that I need some wide receiver help.
Right. And so within that, right, another guy that was really big disappointment was Tony, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kadarius Toney had a bunch of zeros across the board, essentially. Like, what's your thoughts there?
Yeah, and after I watched the replay of it, he got out there, and then they just took him completely off the field, and he never got back out there. I still think this is an issue where you heard the rumblings of he wasn't meshing very well with the new coaching staff. I think this is still an issue that's kind of presenting itself, kind of like a Kyle Shanahan type of thing, where if you get into his doghouse, he's going to put you in that damn doghouse for a long time until you prove to him that, you're ready to go out there and play by their rules, essentially. I think that is playing a factor in what's going on right now with Tony. We're going to have to just continue to wait and see. I don't think you drop him unless you absolutely have to. He's the worst player on your bench, but it's not looking promising for his early season outlook if he can't find his way onto the field, especially when Wan'Dale Robinson went out early in the game, I think before the second half started.
Yep. Yeah, going to play this out. That was a kind of interesting thing there. I got a comment here. Hunter, what's up, Hunter? How you doing, man? He says, I got the week 1 dub. That a boy. That boy, get that week 1 dub. So that's awesome to hear. What about let's talk. All right, I'm going to ask you about this guy. First touchdown in 2 years. Miles Sanders comes into play. And he actually looked kind of decent in that Eagles offense, besides not practicing since preseason, before the first preseason game. What's your thoughts there, man?
I'm very happy with it because, I mean, obviously, because he looks good and he's an Eagle. But the big thing that held me back from Sanders is we didn't know terribly too much about how the hamstring injury was going to affect him. He was in that 3 to 4 week timeline of resting where if he comes back and he makes one wrong cut, he's done. He's re-aggravated it and it's over. That's why I was a bit timid to play him this week. I figured they might hold him back a little bit when they've got Gainwell and Boston Scott in a soft matchup. In terms of run defense, Detroit had no answers for it when we actually decided to run the ball. So when it comes down to looking at how this is going to work moving forward, we already knew that Sanders was a good running back when healthy. Like I said in the past, over 5 yards per carry on his entire career. Yesterday, I think he had close to 7, something like that, a little over 7 yards per carry on 13 carries. He just looks good when he's out there. The big thing that you need to take away from that game moving into next week is when they got down towards the goal line, every single back in that rotation got at least one goal line carry, and they all scored a rushing touchdown. Not just Sanders, but Gainwell and Boston Scott did too. So the coaching staff has no problem rotating the backs when it comes to the important touches inside the 20-yard line. You're not guaranteed that every time they get down close, you've already got Jalen Hurts vulturing touchdowns. Now you're going to have to worry about Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell potentially taking snaps away from Sanders when they do get down close. So it caps his upside, but I think that now you can go into games, especially plus matchups. They play Minnesota on Sunday Night Football next week. I think it's going to work out well. You can play him as an RB2 or a flex, and he should continue to produce for you in that manner. So I think just it's looking like now people got a good value on him because he dropped so late in tons of drafts. I saw him going in the 8th, 9th round once we got towards that last week before the season started. And people who got him on their rosters, he's their RB4. And now you can trust him as your RB2 if you have to.
Right. So one more guy, I guess one more on the running back position, something that we saw that I was very shocked about. There was more Rex Burkhead involvement than was Dameon Pierce. After all the talk, all the stints, not playing in the final preseason game for Pierce that we all thought he was locked in. And then Lovie Smith came out and said, hey, Burkhead's essentially the guy. What do we do? What do we think here, man?
I mean, you got to kind of listen to what Lovie Smith is saying after that first game. Listen, I was never the biggest Pierce guy when his ADP skyrocketed into like the 4th and 5th round towards the end of the drafting process for fantasy. And I figured it was flying too close to the sun when it came to you're going to really burn a draft pick early in the season. Now, rookie running backs, they're a gold mine when it comes to the end of the year, especially guys like Pierce who they're more talented than Burkhead. They're more talented than the rest of the running backs that are in that offense. And by the time that the end of the season rolls around, Houston most likely is going to be out of playoff contention. So he's a guy that's going to be on a lot of championship rosters as a running back that is producing because they're going to want to see what they got in the guy before they head into next season.
Yep.
Early season, though, you've got to be careful. Like, yes, plus matchups, you can go ahead and give him a flex. But if he's got any sort of, red flag matchup that you just wouldn't trust most of your RBs to go up against that defense, you got to bench him and you got to look the other direction until he proves to you that he's going to go out there, get either the majority of touches or do a fantastic job with the touches that he has and produces for fantasy. Because you're setting yourself up for failure if you're not pivoting at this point to other running backs that you have on your roster. When most people were able to get them late, you can pivot somewhere else. If you're one of those teams that drafted them in the 4th and the 5th, I'm very sorry for you. Your hype train is probably going to come to a screeching halt until we get towards the halfway point of the season.
Big time. It's gonna be a little rough if you didn't draft back up with it. So let's move on to the wideouts here as we're at halftime in the game. 17-13 Seahawks. Who would have? I never would have guessed that.
Crazy. Week 1. Killer.
Week 1 madness continues. That's what I say. So obviously the 4 main guys, really, right? Jefferson, Kupp, Adams, Chase, all continue to lead the way for the highest points in the PPR. What's your surprise here in the wide receivers outside of Michael Thomas?
How good AJ Brown looked. Because I was a guy that kind of figured that AJ Brown, even though as much as I love him as a talent, I was one of the people that figured Hurts has spread the ball around for the majority of his career as a starter. And now that he had 3 to 4 really good pieces that he could throw to, he was going to spread the ball around. And instead, he just said, screw it, we're hyper targeting AJ Brown all game. Now, as someone who watched that game extensively, I will say, I think one of the reasons that he consistently went towards Brown because he is his first read is Philadelphia did not protect well in that game. The offensive line, as good as I think we are, had a really rough time with the defensive scheme that they were doing, that NASCAR sprint, whatever it is that they call it on defense, where they just send the house. It's basically engage 8 if you play Madden, and they send everybody towards you. And Hurts had I was counting off seconds. Like I should have had a stopwatch. It was 1 second, 2 seconds before the ball was out of his hands, and it's first read. So I think that did play a factor. If you have Devonta Smith, who got 4 targets, didn't catch any of them, gave you a big goose egg and a really plus matchup, you can still trust him moving forward because he's not going to be under that type of pressure every single game. They're going to figure it out and find a way to keep him protected moving forward. And Devonta Smith is too good of a receiver to not be able to capitalize on some matchups that Philadelphia's got coming up. You got to remember, too, they got the 31st easiest strength of schedule compared to the rest of the NFL heading into the season. And it sticks true. The toughest game that we have is next week against Minnesota, and their defense doesn't particularly scare you. So it's something that just don't worry too much about Devonta Smith. Just understand that he is a boom or bust flex option moving forward. He's not going to be, and he wasn't super consistent last year either, but he may not even be that consistent. But his big games could be a lot bigger than the ones that he had last year.
Okay, that's fair because I got Devonta Smith, man, and I got to breathe here for a minute because I was really thinking that he'd be something week 1 with, AJ Brown might get the attention. Smith would come out the other side, take care of business, and there was just nothing there at all. That was a rough one, I can tell you what. So what about Devin Duvernay leading the way for Baltimore? A couple TDs. I don't know, man. What are we thinking here for a few, like coming into play for week 2?
You can go and grab him off of waivers. Don't go crazy if you're in a fab or free agent acquisition budget waiver league and spend 30-40% of your fab just to get him. This is not going to be the norm, I don't think. I still think that Bateman is the guy that's going to lead the way in terms of target share and stuff. But Duvernay has been there for a while, and this is a guy that Baltimore has trusted to keep. If you look at Baltimore, they have a hell of a time just keeping receivers on the team. They love to either ship them away, cut them, draft new guys, grab these old busted players out of free agency like they do with the running back position, and then roll with what they got there. But Duvernay has been a guy who's stuck with the team since he was a rookie, and they're impressed with him. He's finally found his way onto the field in terms of being able to find a way to be a starter. And he's going to go out there, and I think he's still going to produce. The thing is you've got to consider him boom bust. He didn't have a ton of targets, made those receptions that he had into touchdowns. It's not going to happen every single week, obviously. So when you throw him out there in a plus matchup, you've got to understand that you're hoping for the touchdown. You're throwing him out there because you think he's got a good enough matchup to where he's going to score again. And if he gives you that 1 to 2 point week, you can't sit there and be like, oh, I can't believe that happened. I mean, this is a Baltimore offense is going to run the ball more than anything else. You got Lamar Jackson, who's still going to run the ball more than any other quarterback in the league. So that passing pie is a lot smaller than every other team's. And if Bateman and Mark Andrews are going to take the first 2 reads, Duvernay is still going to be the third, but it's going to come out to be a bad play more often than not. So, but that's what you get when you get waiver wire guys like this. So you take a note of it, you throw them onto a bench. And if you really need them in a desperation play, you throw them into your lineup.
That's right. All right. I got a question here from you. Hunter has a question. He's got to drop 1. Pierce or Mooney?
Who you dropping them for is the big question, right?
Yeah,
like that.
Why are you dropping one of those guys? That's what I want to know. Who you looking at?
I mean, the only player that I can even assume that's widely available on waivers is Jeff Wilson. Everybody's going to go clamoring for Jeff Wilson right now with Elijah Mitchell out for up to 2 months. Jeff Wilson was already the lead backup. He's going to come in and get the majority of the carries now, and that's going to make him a potential top 24 option. So if you're looking to drop Pierce to go get Jeff Wilson, I guess I would consider it. I think if I look at him on paper, I'd probably rather have Wilson than Dameon Pierce right now. But you got to have one hell of a bench if those are your 2 worst players on it. Don't worry about Mooney. That entire Chicago game versus San Francisco, throw it away. Like I said, the weather conditions in that game were so horrible. My Cole Kmet call where I said I love picking him up late in drafts. I think he got 1 target in that game. They just didn't throw because they couldn't throw. So not worried about Kmet, Mooney, any of those guys in Chicago. Everything will turn up rosy next week.
I'm sure they would have got an unsportsmanlike call trying to wipe the ball off too. Like freaking rested for
What the hell are we doing, NFL? Like, seriously? You're having these guys play out
flags
here
out for everybody, man.
3 inches of rain. 3 inches of rain. These guys are walking around and it's splashing up to their chest. It's like a damn
unsportsmanlike.
He's the most hated
a
ref in
little part of
America
the field,
right
man. It's so bad. What are your thoughts on a Warren coming into play with Najee in his injury right now?
So the latest
report, Jaylen Warren?
I do, because as soon as Najee went out, Warren got every single snap at the running back position, because that's just the way Tomlin likes to run his offense. He wants one running back. He doesn't want to worry about rotating him, and he wants them to be the guy. So whoever the handcuff is exactly what you want when it comes to Pittsburgh. And this year we know that it's Warren, because Benny Snell is old and terrible and slow. So there's no way he's going to work for that offense. The latest report out on Harris is that they don't think it is serious, and there's a good chance that he plays this week. And I'm telling you right now, I don't give a crap if he plays this week. This Lisfranc injury has already popped up as a problem in the first week of the regular season. If you don't think it's going to pop up again as a problem moving forward, you're being ignorant to the fact that the Lisfranc injury is a serious problem for a running back. So looking at it moving forward, if you have Najee, you have to go out and get Warren at all costs just to handcuff him. This was one of your first-round picks, or maybe early second-round pick. You have to go out and handcuff that guy. If you don't, and you want to go get somebody on your bench that's basically gold, waiting to be ready to go in and start for an offense that runs the ball at a high rate, go and grab Warren. After I just did my list, I got to go back and look at it. He's a top 3 waiver pickup for me this week, and I don't care about the status of Najee Harris moving into this week going forward. If he plays, I don't care. I will keep Warren on my bench, because I know that at some point there's about a 90% chance that Najee Harris is going to miss at least 2 games this year if that Lisfranc injury keeps coming into play. And the more he runs on it, the worse it's going to get. And he already had 300 carries last year, so his foot is basically a ticking time bomb.
Gotcha. All right, Hunter responded here. He says, my bench isn't that good. It's a 10-man league. Trey Lance, Dillon, Pierce, Mooney, Ertz, and the Chargers defense. I'm keeping the Chargers defense because I don't trust who's your starting defense, man? Why are you keeping 2 defenses? We talked about this earlier during the draft stuff that I was doing, that I could care less about defenses because you just rotate them in per matchup.
Yeah, listen, I started Philadelphia this week, and poo-poo on me because apparently that was a bad matchup with the Detroit Lions, for God's sakes. They'll be dropped immediately.
Yeah, Steelers. Yeah, the Steelers D.
Okay. If Ertz is your backup tight end, to me, that says you have a fantastic starting tight end, because Ertz was drafted in usually the 8th, 9th round. Even in a 10-team league, he's probably going in the 10th round most likely. I would drop Ertz. Get rid of Ertz. Keep Pierce, because he's got way higher upside than Ertz does. Mooney will be perfectly fine. Go ahead and drop Ertz to waivers. In a 10-team league, Ertz is most likely a waiver wire guy anyways. That is being consistently picked up and dropped when he's got good and bad matchups. Like I said, I don't know who your starting tight end is, but if it's anybody ranked ahead of Hurts that I had in my rankings, Dalton Schultz, drop Ertz, get rid of him.
Drop Ertz, man.
If there's one position in football that a backup or rookie quarterback loves more than anything, it's the tight end. So if you thought Dalton Schultz was going to get a high target share before, good Lord, he's got a chance to hit 160 this year now. So
here we go.
No, absolutely.
And you saw it towards the end of the game last night is Schultz was getting a lot more targets as soon as Dak basically left. I mean, Dak was already had, I think, 2 or 3 targets towards him. And then after that, that's Rush's clutch right there he was going to.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the safety blanket, and Cooper Rush isn't going to do something stupid and try to challenge the ball 30 yards downfield. So he's going to throw to Dalton Schultz at a high rate. Cut bait with Ertz. You won't need him. If an injury happens, go pick up Gerald Everett off of waivers like I told everybody to do at the start of the season. I can't wait to get to him, because I know we'll get to the tight ends.
So what do you have for tight ends here?
So tight end was obviously weird this week. I think Taysom Hill finished as a top 5 option, which I will say I'm one of the few rankers on Fantasy Pros that actually threw him in my preseason rankings. So what are you doing, people? Like, we should have known that Taysom Hill was going to be used in some capacity. The guy's on a $100 million contract, for God's sakes. I don't care if it's not actually going to get paid to him. It doesn't matter to me. So that was the big one. He's going to be a waiver claim for a lot of fantasy teams this week. And I think he's not a terrible one. Because at the end of the day, as much as I think Adam Troutman is a better tight end overall, they're just going to use Taysom Hill in that Swiss Army knife role. You could get passing yard points from him in a game just because he goes out and throws 2 passes, or you could get there's almost no tight end in the league that's going to get carries, and he's one of the only ones that's going to get it. So I think he's just got enough versatility to where he's going to be able to sustain some good fantasy relevance as we move forward. And then obviously Gerald Everett, man. He's the guy that I hyped up all off season as a guy that I think is going to be a good weekly asset for you. If you draft him, you can leave your draft with him as your only tight end and be okay. He proved it this week. He's going to have more opportunity next week. Still no Donald Parham, most likely. Also, Keenan Allen is most likely going to miss on Thursday with the hamstring injury. So he's going to be necessary. I think he was the first target that Herbert had in that game, and he went for over 20 yards. I can't remember. I know it was really early in that first drive.
Yeah, I think you're right though on that target over 20 yards.
I mean, if that's his first target, we already know that he's got a good rapport with Herbert. So I love him. I think he's got a high touchdown ceiling this year. He could be that tight end that most people don't draft or leave to the end of drafts that winds up being in the top 10, catching 8 to 10 touchdowns, just because that's what happens every single year. We had it with Tanya a couple of years ago. Remember Gary Barnage from the Browns? He's another one right there. This is that year for him, I think. So if he's on your waivers and you have a tight end that you have no faith in, just go grab him. Even if you do, just go grab him, because you're going to be able to use him moving forward. He's a guy that I would rather have on my bench than some of these, trash wide receivers that we all picked up in the 15th round that didn't do anything yesterday.
All right. And then Hunter's asking, because of the Keenan Allen injury, who should he start on his flex? And then he has AJ Dillon there, Pierce, Mooney, Ertz. Of course, Ertz, hopefully he's dropping that guy. I would say almost maybe AJ Dillon, just from what we saw week 1.
You definitely need to do your best to find a way to get AJ Dillon in your lineup almost every single week, unless the matchup is, an elite run defense. And we won't know that until about week 4, because consistency is a thing in the NFL. So definitely find a way to get AJ Dillon into your lineup. Like I said earlier, Chicago is the perfect get right game for the Packers. They're going to come out with their hair on fire. And Dillon, he already led the team in carries last season. Now it was only by 11, but we already saw how it's going to look as long as Lazard is off the field when between the carry counts between AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. And I think it's going to look that way no matter what. Dillon is a better ball carrier. Jones is a better receiver and explosive playmaker. So they're going to give the majority of carries to Dillon because he can take more punishment than Jones, he's in his 6th year. Did you know that? I looked that up, and he's a 6th-year running back. I can't believe that it's been that long in the league. Yeah, and he's taken a lot of carries over his career, more than I even remember. So
I guess I never thought about that.
He's definitely not going to lead the team in carries compared to AJ Dillon. I think Dillon will probably have 40 to 50 more than him by the end of the season. So definitely get him in your lineup. I think he's a top 15 option every week.
All right, real quick here, as we since quarter 3 started here, got some hockey around the corner with Jim. Name 3 guys for us to start in week 2, must starts, and go.
Ooh, man, on the spot. I should have thought about this beforehand.
You knew it was coming, at least.
Yeah, I know. Listen, busy day, brother. Busy day. Definitely fire up at the tight end position. I know that Gerald Everett is still going to be a guy that's on the waivers in a ton of leagues. You'd need to fire him up this week on the Thursday night game against Kansas City. Kansas City defense did a fantastic job stopping Arizona. Arizona was a bit depleted, but at the end of the day, a lot of the pass catchers in Arizona still had a fairly decent day. So definitely go ahead and start Gerald Everett. I think he's one of the highest upside waiver guys on the for the tight end position that has the most touchdown potential. Going into wide receiver, I'm trying to think of someone who had like a poor week, because I want to give some people some confidence. If you have any shares of Jarvis Landry, who's another guy that's going to be picked up off waivers, but he's rostered in roughly over 60% of most leagues. Jarvis Landry had a sneaky good game. He led the team in targets, and if this past Sunday's game is any indication of what the Saints are going to have to do offensively to keep the ball moving. They're going to throw at a higher rate than what we saw last year's Jameis Winston-led Saints did in their first 6 games. I think he's a really safe flex option. And if you're looking for someone to just kind of net you 8 to 10 points every single week, I think Landry's going to do it again this year. And I think he has higher touchdown upside with a guy like Winston than he did when he was in Cleveland with a guy like Baker Mayfield. So I would definitely give him a start.
What about a guy like Waddle coming into play, going against the Ravens? Going to be a pretty pass-heavy game with Tua there. And, of course, Tyreek's going to be Tyreek. But what about, Waddle here on the other side?
Waddle really surprised me because and it's not that I figured he was going to have a really poor game, but I think that they involved him more than I initially thought they were going to, while still giving Tyreek Hill the attention that he deserved and the target share that he deserved in a game where I think they probably could have scored more points, but because it was Bill Belichick's defense, they got stymied when they were really trying to establish it with the run game and stuff like that. Waddle's a fantastic start. I think if you have him, you can have more confidence in him now. And I was someone who had a lot less confidence than most people did going into draft season. So now I'm a little bit sad that I don't have many shares of him on fantasy rosters. But at the same time, you're going to swing and miss on some of these guys. So I'm not too worried about it. I'm not going to give the confidence to Aaron Rodgers, even though he plays against Chicago. Carson Wentz has a fantastic matchup next week too, and I think he's going to be a really highly picked up guy off of waivers. I wouldn't be surprised if he finished as a top 10 quarterback again, maybe even a top 5 quarterback if they continue to throw the ball as heavy as they did in Washington. So if you're looking for a streamer, I think that between him and Jameis Winston, those are the 2 hottest waiver wire quarterbacks in most leagues right now. I would rather start Wentz over Winston this week because Winston gets to go up against Tampa Bay, who just stymied the Dallas Cowboys to 3 points. So, definitely you'll get better answers from me later on in the week when I do my columns and write about some of these guys. But off the top of my head, kind of looking at it, those are definitely the ones that I would start to look at right now and aim for when you're heading into week 2. But I can't stress it enough. Just don't overreact to week 1. My Travis Etienne managers, my Chase Edmond managers, who I still think he had a fine game, but there's people panicking in the streets about him. Ramondre Stevenson managers. Guys, just take a breath. They're going to be fine as the season moves along. These guys are still going to be very viable fantasy options as we move forward. Even if you've got some of the quarterbacks that had some crappy weeks that we all drafted but just didn't go the way that we want to. Joe Burrow, he's not going to throw 4 interceptions every single week. Like T. Higgins managers, don't worry, he's in a concussion protocol and he's most likely going to come out of it this week. You're going to be okay. Like, just lots of guys that I see people like, who am I got to trade him? I got to drop him. Like,
don't be emotional like I was last night after CD got me 3 points. All right, just take a breather and it'll be all right. Wait a couple weeks, see what happens, then you can start making some moves.
100%. Just don't go crazy. On the flip side of that, if you are trying to move some people, especially to take advantage of those panic managers and you don't know what trade to put together, go DM me on Twitter or go message me on Facebook. I will help you work together some trades to get some of these players that people are panicking on.
At Triple FTP, guys. So go check him out on Twitter there. So, Ryan, appreciate you joining us. Always talking fantasy every Monday. Always appreciate it. Go check him out. fantasyfootballforthepeople.com. WagMe Fantasy. You can see this articles there. And then also at Rotoballer. Go check him out there.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, no, you got them all, man. You got them all. Just quickly, I'll tout the newsletter real quick. Tomorrow morning, waiver wire rankings column. I don't just give you guys that I like. I rank every single waiver wire player that Fantasy Pros has on their rankings tool in order and by position, overall and by position, of guys that I would pick up over certain ones. And then I'm going to give you a small list because it is week 1 of guys that are rostered at any percentage in these in Sleeper that you can go ahead and drop for these players that are being ranked and talked about. I give you my must adds, my guys that you can take a flyer on. It's going to be every single week over at WagMe Fantasy. So subscribe to that free newsletter. You'll get it as soon as Tuesday morning hits so you can kind of hit your waivers early. Go ahead and do that. Rotoballer, you see all my stuff on the Sleeper app. If you have any Philadelphia Eagles and Green Bay Packers players, the reviews and recaps, and the wide receiver injury column every Saturday over at Rotoballer. That's all me. So I'm trying to help you guys out as best as I can. I'm busy as hell, but I'm having a ton of fun doing it.
That's all I got to say. So awesome, man. Well, I'll keep an eye out for content. Appreciate you joining. We'll talk next week, man.
Absolutely, man. Take it easy, guy.
Yep. See you, man. Ryan Larson, everybody. Make sure to check him out. All right, guys. So we got another sport just around the corner starting. We're going to bring in Jim Biringer. Jim, what's going on, man?
Yo, what's going on, buddy? How you been?
I'm good. How you feeling, though? You got Giants 1-0 start the season? Like,
not too bad. Not too bad for a team nobody expected to do anything this year. You know what? I will say, I was telling Dan before on his show, I was saying, you know what? I like the aggressive nature of Brian Daboll. You know what? You're going to go for it. You're going to fall on your face. So what? Be aggressive. I like it. It's a far cry from what this team was. Too conservative. I tell you, if this was last year's team, last year's coaching staff, Giants lose that game yesterday.
Oh yeah, and they don't go for it. They don't give Daniel Jones the ball and say, go make a play like he did to make that 4th down play. So I think that's a big part of the Giants this year coming into play. So, well, let's talk some hockey here. That's right around the corner, right? We got the first game starting next week?
Yeah, September 24th, preseason hockey is back. Camps open up end of the week. So training camps are here. Preseason hockey tournament camps are this weekend as well. Prospect camps. So yeah, NHL. The NHL is right around the corner. I believe October. I believe the first weekend in October. Games happen overseas, and then we get rolling over here in North America.
All right. Well, are there any surprises coming into play off this this last month, essentially, of the off season?
I mean, the big thing is Vegas. What are we going to see from Vegas this year, especially with goaltending? I mean, you got Robin Leonard, who's going to have hip surgery. He's not expected to be around the rest of the year. He's going to probably miss the season. Then it was coming out. They said, oh, well, Brossoit is going to be our guy along with Thompson, but Brossoit is probably not going to be ready until January. So the Golden Knights go out to get a goaltender, Nhl. So basically it's Logan Thompson, Nhl, Michael Hutchinson trio in Vegas. Hot take. It's not really a hot take, but I think Vegas probably ends up missing the playoffs because of goaltending. Everybody said they traded the wrong guy in Marc-Andre Fleury, who's now in Minnesota, and it's just a bad situation in Vegas. All eyes are on Jack Eichel, see what they can do. But they've changed over that team since they first came into the league in 2018 when they were the Golden Misfits, the cast-offs. They rallied around, made a Stanley Cup final in their first season, which is unheard of. And now they're going through what I like to say expansion team woes because they're finding out what life is like being an expansion team, especially one that spends to the salary cap.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I saw that the Hill only appeared 25 games for the Shark last season, 10, 11, and 1. That doesn't sound very winning to me going into play.
It's not winning. It's not winning hockey at all, for sure. And there's a lot of pressure on Vegas, especially with that ownership. They want to win. He has a plan, a 5-year plan. Said he was going to bring a Stanley Cup. They almost won in their first year, but again, I think they made some decisions. Moved some guys out that were locker room guys. I think there's a lot of guys in that locker room that didn't like the fact that Nate Schmidt was one of those guys that got moved out. And then you bring in a guy like Mac Pacioretty, bring in a Mark Stone, guys that get hurt, and then they move out Pacioretty pretty much for nothing. And, because they're up against the salary cap, giving these guys big time money, big time years. And now you got to play the salary cap game. Now it's not their fault. COVID happened. The cap was flat for a couple of years, but now, it's probably going to go up next year after $1 million going up this year. But still, I mean, hopefully when everything finally readjusts itself, you're going to see teams finally be able to spend a little bit and everything. The contracts that they have will finally look reasonable on a bigger salary cap.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of exciting to see exactly what happens there. Hunter, one of the guys that I've, was hanging out with my channel a few times, he says, believe it or not, I know more about hockey than football. Well, Hunter, we call this Nick, who's usually here with me. He has an event going on right now, but Nick and I call this learning time with Jim because we're trying to get into the hockey world here and learning more about this and be able to look up some of these guys. So just be aware of that, Hunter. But please ask, comment away. We'll make Jimmy answer questions.
Absolutely. No, I'm that's a big thing for me. I love the interaction, the comments. If you guys have questions, whatever you want. I know, we talk about things looking into the season, with Patrice Bergeron coming back in Boston, David Krejci back. They have injuries to Marchand, McAvoy, Grzelcyk. Can this team survive the stretch before those guys come back? Because a lot of those guys are not going to come back till December, January. So, and an Atlantic division that got better, obviously Ottawa and Montreal are not going to be playoff teams, but they got better on paper. They're going to be a better team. So, that's going to be a tough situation there. You got the Lightning, Panthers are still a viable team, Maple Leafs. So it's going to be a tough stretch for Boston.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. They finished they finished fourth in their division last year.
That's correct.
So with it, there's a few key signings too. Didn't Ottawa have a few key signings come into play?
Yeah, they signed Claude Giroux off the free agent market. They traded for Cam Talbot after the whole situation in Minnesota where Guerin signs Fleury, and then there's a going back and forth at the draft with his agent, and then there's like, no, these are our guys. We're not going to do anything. And then like 2 days later, he trades him to Ottawa. And he got Forsberg and Talbot in Ottawa. They signed Giroux. They traded for DeBrincat. They signed a bunch of their young guys, most recently Stützle to a 7-year deal. You got Brady Tkachuk on a 7-year deal, Shabbat's there. So they got a nice young nucleus there. Senators, they got a nice top 9 group. Their defense probably could be secured up a little bit more. But the Senators, believe the hype train coming in this year. I don't think they'll be a playoff team, but they're going to be a lot more dangerous than people give them credit for. Last year, a lot of people thought the Senators were going to take a step forward. And they didn't. They actually took a step backwards. But I think this is the year everybody expects the Senators to take that next step before playoffs, because I think next year is when you're going to see Ottawa make the playoffs.
All right. Yeah. Something similar like maybe the Baltimore Orioles did this year in baseball, of taking that next step and showing that, hey, they can be a competitive team coming into play.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. Yeah, great example about Baltimore and Ottawa is right there. Another team, like I said, I'm watching in there is Montreal. Let's see what they do. They signed Doc to a 4-year extension, a bridge, after they traded for him at the draft. They believe in him. Maybe they'll move him to the wing with the acquisition of Sean Monahan after Calgary Flames signed Nazem Kadri. They had to move some money out, so they moved him over there to Montreal. So we'll see what happens with that team. I mean, they got better. They have cap space because Shea Weber's not there anymore. They're going to put Carey Price on long-term injury reserve. It's a shame because he's one of the best goalies never to win a Stanley Cup. And when he's healthy, a healthy Carey Price, the Montreal Canadiens are a very hard team to beat, especially in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We saw it in the bubble. We saw it the year they went to the Stanley Cup final and lost. When Carey Price is going, they are very, very tough to beat.
What about this Nick Suzuki kid coming into play, the youngest captain in Montreal history, the heartbeat of the team, aka as they said? Like, what's impact is this kid going to have here for Montreal?
That's a nice deal. I mean, I think a lot of people wanted to see Brandon Gallagher there because he's a more physical player, vocal player. But Nick Suzuki is part of that Max Pacioretty trade. He was one of the draft picks by the Vegas Golden Knights that got sent over to Montreal. He's the number 1 center. He's got a good head on his shoulder, plays alongside Cole Caulfield. I think this is Martin St. Louis, the head coach of the Montreal Canadiens, saying, you know what, this is a kids league now. We have kids in this room, yes, but they understand the game so well. They have good heads on their shoulders, and Nick Suzuki's one of them guys. I know you see a lot of the Canadian press saying, this kid just needs to focus and worry about his game. But you know what? When you have a guy like Brendan Gallagher and Joel Edmondson as your alternate or assistant captains, that's good to take some pressure off Suzuki. And he's going to be right. He's always been in front of the media, even when he's going to take his game to the next level. He took it this year. and expect him to keep bringing his numbers up. He is that kind of player. That's why Vegas drafted him in the first round, and that's why Montreal got him from that Pacioretty deal. And his play with Caulfield is they're a dynamic duo. When they came in together, look out. I mean, these guys can make magic, especially, St. Louis does things the right way. But yeah, Nick Suzuki, captain, I like the sign. I like the deal right there for Montreal.
Gotcha. All right. So one team I don't say I follow, but I talk a lot with some of my customers and friends I have from Minnesota. Minnesota Wild, right? Or looks like they're, I don't know, trimming payroll in a way because they just shipped off Dmitry Kulikov to Anaheim Ducks, and this is a team that was very competitive going into the playoffs, but just nothing happened. They couldn't finish it out. Like what's up here? Are we looking at Minnesota maybe having not a rebuild year, but maybe a down year coming into play?
I mean, if you want to call it a down year, I mean, this team has made, I believe I heard the stat was like they've made the playoffs like 9 straight seasons, something like that, or 8 out of 9. So I don't expect that thing to change. I don't know if they'll finish second or third again in that division. I think it's a very, very tough division with the champs. Colorado, St. Louis is there. Dallas can always make noise. Nashville could have a bounce back year. So it could be difficult to, guarantee yourself a playoff spot, but I like what Bill Guerin's doing there. He's making the tough decisions. Yes, right now they're hamstrung because of the buyouts to Zach Parise and Ryan Suter over the next couple of years that, really hurts their salary cap. So that's why they couldn't keep Kevin Fiala, who went to the Los Angeles Kings, who they traded, and then he signed there. That's why they had to move out Kulikov. It's just, money moves to get them under the salary cap. Again, you hate to say it because you don't have like a floating cap or a cap where teams can spend, the better teams can spend over with a luxury tax or something similar to what we see in the NBA where there's a soft cap or NFL, stuff like that. But Minnesota, gotcha. I think they'll be a good team. I think they'll be fine. I like the combination of Fleury and Gustafsson. You still got Spurgeon. You still got Dumba and Brodin on the back end. Kirill the Thrill Kaprizov is the man in Minnesota. He's one of the best players since Marian Gaborik. He's putting up numbers, continues to put up numbers. They'll be fine. I want to see what guys like, Hartman, if he could take the next step, if Matt Boldy can fill the shoes. He played great towards the end of last year. Let's see who can replace that 25 to 30 goal scorer Kevin Fiala in Minnesota, because they're going to need to score some goals this year. And they're going to expect a lot more from Matt Zuccarello.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that's good. They're going to be at least competitive. That's the big thing. At least there's going to be some hope there for my friends up there.
Yeah.
Going to play. Hunter here says he's having a rough year as a Blackhawks fan. He says a down year sounds like the definition of Chicago Blackhawks. Now, this was the team that we talked about when we all first started Buffoon and Bodkins. This is the 10-year rebuild plan. Did anything else happen after our last conversation for the Chicago Blackhawks? Is there some kind of hope coming into play?
I mean, look, this team, as I spoke with other people with Chicago, of talking about Chicago, like what is going on in Chicago is really what I want to know, because like you want to have young pieces to build around, but you move out Doc and DeBrincat and you have Seth Jones, but you're trying to get bad to get good because you want Connor Bedard, but you want Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves to move their no waiver, their no trade, no move clauses, because you're going to be really bad and you want to force them out in a way where they want out. Obviously the rumors are Kane and Taves are going to look to be traded at some point, but again, both have said through their agents, and especially Kane, that says he'll start the season in Chicago. He'll see where things go. From there, he'll ask if he wants to be traded or not. I think if both do get traded, it'll be at the deadline when their salaries are less, when there's less money on the deal, but they're going to have to get something for him, first round pick, something to make this worth it. Because if you give up on guys like Panarin, DeBrincat, Doc, and it's not fair to Doc because he got hurt, but they never put him in the right situation. He's going to flourish in Montreal with St. Louis. I know it. But yeah, if you move Kane and Taves, it's pretty much the end of an era in Chicago with all those Stanley Cups. Everybody's gone from that day and age, and it's gonna be a long season for Chicago Blackhawks fans, unfortunately. And Seth Jones got to be thinking, why the heck did I want to come to this team when they're rebuilding? And this is what I wanted to avoid from Columbus.
But does the money not play in the fact that that's why he went to Chicago at all?
No, I mean, Columbus was going to give him money, but he didn't want to go through a rebuild. He didn't want to be with a younger team. And now Chicago's doing the thing he didn't want to go through in Columbus. Gotcha. And now he's got a full no move, no trade clause. So if anything, they're going to have to move Kane and Taves. And I think they can do it. I think Kane, if he ends up moving, it's going to go to a contender. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 3-team deal where a team eats some money to make it work.
Gotcha. Okay, coming into play. All right, now we can talk about the Metropolitan division, your division, right?
My division. Yeah.
Devils fan. What are we seeing here this year?
I mean, it's going to be a tough division, I think. You look at it top to bottom. I mean, Carolina's still there. They're still pretty good. Last I checked, they added Brent Burns. They kept Marty Natchez. They still have a good coach in Rob Brindamore. They added, they lost Vinny Trocheck, but you know what? They made up for it. Max Pacioretty, he's going to be out a little bit. Unfortunately for Pacioretty, tore his Achilles training, so he's going to be out a while. But they added some nice pieces, and still can score goals. Still going to play some defense. And Rob Brendamore's their coach, so there's going to be no quit in Carolina. The Rangers are the Rangers. That's who they are. I expect Chris Kreider to come back to earth a little bit. I don't expect another 50-goal season from him, but I do expect 40-plus goals. Igor Shesterkin's the Vezina Trophy winner for a reason. He's probably one of the best goalies in the league right now. Rangers have a great coach in Gerard Gallant. They have great offense. Let's see what they do moving Lafreniere around. What about the whole Kakko situation after he got benched? They really didn't give up a reason why he was healthy scratch. So let's see if he can come out and prove some people wrong. And I think the Rangers will still be up there towards the top of the division with Carolina. Okay. Yeah, and then obviously, Columbus got better with Johnny Gaudreau signing. They kept Patrick Laine. I think they're going to be a better team. They're going to be battling it out for this fourth spot in the Metro because Nick Backstrom's not around in Washington, but you still have Ovi. But that team is definitely older, and I think definitely slower and taking a step back. Pittsburgh brought all their core guys back to make another run at this with the Malkin, Crosby, Letang. But Evan Rodriguez, the guy who put up 43 points, is in Colorado. He signed today, so they didn't bring him back. But let's see what this team can do. Again, they continuously failed to get out of the first round. Obviously, Sid got hurt last year against the Rangers. I think it might have been a different story. They're trying to kick this thing, keep it going, but unfortunately, they're going to run into the problem that Chicago's running into right now is when their guys get older, they really don't have anything in the farm system to give people hope that it can be sustained, similar to what Boston's going through as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Pittsburgh, but New Jersey's definitely gotten better. I like their acquisitions, Andre Palat, Vitek Vanacek. And they upgraded in positions of need. Tom Fitzgerald's doing the right things, getting this team competitive. Their draft pick was really solid. The Islanders head scratchers here really didn't do much, didn't fill a position of need. Lou Lamoriello believes in this team, but a lot of people think maybe all because of COVID last year, because of, they started on the road. Not a fair shake of what the Islanders really were. It was really what they was the second half of the year. They have a great goaltender in Ilya Sorokin. They have a good backup. They could have moved some money around, moved him out to make things work with Nazem Kadri. But, Lou is Lou, and he's not going to pay guys a certain amount of money. We'll see what happens. I'm not sold this Islanders team gets back to the playoffs. I think what we saw last year is what we're going to get from this Islanders team after – they went to back-to-back conference finals, new head coach. I'm just not sold on them not filling a position of need of offense and scoring goals when that's always been an issue for the New York Islanders. And I think the Flyers, to be honest, I think they're going to be near the bottom of the division. I never liked the Tortorella signing as a coach. This team has a lot of holes that need to be filled. There was a guy in Johnny Gaudreau who wanted to play there, but Chuck Fletcher doesn't want to move her first-round pick with JVR to Arizona, who said they was willing to take on salary, and now you're stuck with pretty much the same team. It's going to be a hard time in Philadelphia this year. I think, You're looking obviously at the Rangers and Carolina 1-2. Maybe Pittsburgh squeezes in there the third, and I think the fourth spot's open for business in the Metro.
Oh man. So you're thinking that, do you think the Islanders this year, if they're not, in the hunt here for at least a playoff spot, do you think they sell some of that roster they got, some of those stars they have?
I mean, I would think they would move some guys. The problem is they have a lot of hard contracts that nobody really wants to take on, like Palmieri's 4 times $5 million. He's got a couple years left on that deal. I think Lou overpaid for him. The Dobson signing, the Romanoff signing, the Pollock and Pelech signings look really good. Lou knows how to get what he wants, but the problem is they don't have goal scoring. And I hate to say this, and I hate to pick on this kid, but Matt Barzal needs to step up this year. Really wasn't impressed with his world championships. Yeah, he had a couple of nice games towards the end, but he's not a guy that can carry offense. He doesn't drive and make guys better. You need somebody that can do that, and the Islanders just didn't go out and get a guy like that. They could have, but Lou just doesn't want to pay for it, and he didn't move money to get guys like a Nazem Kadri who would have been a perfect fit. And if the Islanders don't make the playoffs, you don't expect Lou Lamoriello to keep his job.
Gotcha. All right. So who's so is Colorado still your favorite to win?
I
this
mean,
year?
you got to take Colorado early
Right?
money line favorite. I mean, the champs, until somebody beats them, I think it's going to be definitely tough to repeat just because of what they lost. Especially that second line center with Nazem Kadri going up to Calgary. I think that's a big signing for them. Yeah, even though Calgary lost a guy like Kachuk and Goudreau to replace them with a Kadri and Jonathan Huberdeau, and then you add Mackenzie Weegar into that, who potentially could be re-signed for a 4 to 5 year deal. Darryl's team's going to be really good again. I would put them, up there along with Edmonton as cup favorites this year.
Okay. What about do you have a favorite sleeper, like an underdog?
Man, so early. I mean,
I know.
It's really, really early in
preseason underdog.
Yeah, like preseason underdog that could come out of nowhere and like win a cup. Man.
Like, wouldn't it have to be somewhere in the Atlantic?
I mean, it could. Does Toronto count as a preseason underdog? They can't even get out of the first. I mean, they got to get out of the first round. It's make or break this year for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, something has to give. This team either has to get out of the first round or they have to change something. I'm intrigued by Matt Murray there. Let's see what their goaltending situation can be. But I don't know what to expect from Matt Murray this year. I'm really not sure. I mean, out west, could you see a team like maybe if the Kings get in, do you think they can make a run? Man, see if Vegas gets in, they have a chance. But man, it's so
the
tough.
thing is, the Kings last year finished with a +3 differential,
right?
And I feel there has to be more, I guess, a better differential by far to go into play, like even a +18 on Vegas. But I don't know, maybe, yeah.
I mean, look, Dallas had the worst goal differential in the league, made the playoffs, and almost beat Calgary in the first round. So I mean, if you can get goaltending in the playoffs, good goaltending beats anything any day of the week. I mean, look, Detroit's going to take steps this year. Buffalo, I'm intrigued to see what the Buffalo Sabres do. They improved their team really well, and they gave Alex Tuch a big contract. So I want to see what they're going to do this year. Man. Yeah, I mean,
I know that's a tough question. It's a hard one to play right now.
It is a hard one to play right now. I mean, if you had to say a team that is an underdog, I would say the Toronto Maple Leafs are an underdog.
Okay. Let's see here. Hunter says his underdog is the Rangers this year.
I don't know. I think there'll be a Stanley Cup favorite going in, to be honest. I think they'll be one of the favorites with that roster, considering the run that they made last year. If the Island, like for instance, if the Islanders decide that they, the team that we saw that went, the back-to-back conference finals, the Islanders get in, look out, because they could play defensive hockey in the playoffs and could finally make that run that everybody expects them to do it. But again, they got to score goals. It could be out west. It's either the Atlantic or it's out west somewhere. Because I think Colorado, Calgary, Edmonton, and St. Louis are some of your favorites to win the Stanley Cup. Nashville always has a puncher's chance to do something. I mean, they got to a cup final in 2017. They have good goaltending. They have good defense. Let's see if they can put it all together one more time with Roman Josi back there. And
Hunter says he actually changed his mind. It's Columbus.
That's a good pick. Columbus. I mean, you have Johnny Gaudreau. Let's see what you can get out of Merzlikins and Korpisalo. Werenski on the back end, line A. There are expectations in Columbus, but I don't think anybody has Columbus as the Stanley Cup favorite whatsoever.
All right. Well, that's good to know. Do you play any fantasy hockey?
I used to play a lot of fantasy hockey. I used to and this might be tooting my own horn, but I was really good at fantasy hockey. I won my league like 6 straight years.
God dang. 6 years in straight years?
Yeah.
Oh man. See, I thought about getting into it this year, just so I can learn some of the players, learn some of the the sport in general.
It's fun. It's different than fantasy football because it's more like it's similar to fantasy baseball where you have to keep track of it every day.
Gotcha. Not a weekly thing. It's like baseball where it is basically every matchup you get.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it could change with fantasy hockey. Like it depends on the type of league you're in. If goals and assists and points and power play points are more than like hits and stuff. And then if you have like different rules and everything. But yeah, like the league I was in, it was great. And I drafted smart. Like I didn't like a lot of guys went after the big names. Obviously, the big guys were always off the board. Like one year I ended up with Crosby, Henrik Sedin, and I forget who else my other center was. But I was like, how did that happen? I had like Lundqvist and like Quick as my goalies. I'm like, who are you drafting? Like, what are you like? I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, what are these people doing?
Because you're drafting with a bunch of people like Bodkins and I.
Like, no, but like my friends are like knowledgeable hockey people. I'm like, just how? Like, why? Like, I don't get it.
Oh man! See, I was looking at some of their rankings, and they have Connor McDavid at 1.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, that's not
right?
that's not. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see any surprises, and like I said, I was just going to get into it. Just curious if you had any advice.
I do have an advice for you. It's similar to what you see with fantasy football when it comes to like running backs and goaltenders, right? Mm-hmm. Just because somebody takes one doesn't mean there should be a run on goalies. You can find goaltending. Like you can find goaltending, you can find wingers that can put pucks in the net. Obviously, we're depending on where you are. I usually try not to take a goalie in like the first couple of rounds. I want to fill out my positions because I want to get the goals and the points because I know goaltending is there. That's just my experience because I can find my starters and then I can find a backup. Like if you can find, like if you look and you look at the rankings and you find the guys and you know who's going to play when, you don't try to take a goalie right away. You try to fill out your positions, like your top positions right away. And it's best to have for me, I always liked guys. So it depends if you like similar like with the flex in fantasy football. If you have a guy that can play left or right or center and you can move him anywhere in your lineup, like that's when the guy could play multiple positions. Okay. Those are the guys you want.
Gotcha. That you can get away with it's like a Taysom Hill kind of player where you can get away with the tight end, quarterback, or wherever really with him.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you got a guy that has like center, left wing, right wing, you could put him anywhere. And like especially if you have a day off or something where one of your guys aren't in, you could like move them around a little bit. So those were the kind of guys I always liked finding in my lineup.
Good idea. Hunter says his top 4 are McKinnon, McCarr, Crosby, and Kane going to play.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a problem with that. I mean, I probably put Matthews in there somewhere too, just because of what he's done. I think I have like I would say like obviously, I'm looking at NHL.com fantasy right now, and obviously McDavid, Draisaitl, Matthews, McCarr, McKinnon, Kaprizov is your top 6. I mean, I don't really see anything there. I mean, I know Crosby's down at 14, but Crosby's still going to put up points, and same as Ovi with his goals. I mean, I don't care where they have him ranked. If you could get Alex Ovechkin, he's going to put up power play points. He's going to put up goals for you because in that kitchen of his, the guy still can score, 30 plus goals, 40 goals a season. So, if Ovi's on the board, I take him.
I got you. It looks like Hunter also said his friends took Vasi and Sorkin first 2 rounds. He was racking up there, and then he said top four on his team.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I don't know how you got those 4 guys on your team. I mean, again, who you drafting with? Because how did anybody let you get those 4 guys? Like, I mean, that's smart drafting. He did it right. Hunter did it right. Again, the guy who took Vasilevsky, Sorokin in the first round. I don't know what you're doing because Hunter probably could find goaltending anywhere in his draft. But yeah, that's a solid top 4 on his team. That's ridiculous.
And he also mentions he has John Carlson and Stutzel. Right? I mean, Stutzel.
Yeah, Stutzel from Ottawa. That's a great pickup. Stutzel. Yeah, he's only getting better. He raised his point production from his first year to his second year, pretty much almost doubled it.
Wow. That's okay. That's good to note.
Yeah.
Keep him on radar. Yeah. So is there like any for like people like me that are getting into hockey fantasy, or is there any websites preferably like with like you would trust rankings wise, or is there any kind of resources?
Yeah, I mean, I would obviously use when I was playing, I always used the Yahoo Fantasy hockey rankings. They always had really good rankings. NHL.com puts out good fantasy rankings as well. They have a really good staff that puts that together. And I would just go between both of those. I mean, people look at ESPN too. Those are, stuff like that. But always be sure when you do fantasy hockey, when you do it, take note of morning skates like Daily Face-Offs, sites like that, to see who's going in goal that day. Because if you have your guy slated for starting, you may want to pick up his backup depending if it's on a back-to-back or not. You want to make sure, if he's starting or not. Maybe if you need a goalie start somewhere that can win a category, or if you don't want to start your guy. Like I did this play. I made this move one time. I was winning goals against average. I didn't care about the starts. I had the goals against average and wins locked up. I sat my guys the rest of I'm like, I don't need to play them. Like,
oh, wow.
I found 2 backups that I knew weren't going to play, and I just didn't play them. And I won the category and won the week because I was just like, nope, I'm not giving it up. I'm not giving up like a 2.09 goals against average. Like I didn't want to do it.
Oh, wow. Hunter says here, strategy for goalies are to draft them based off the team they play for, not skill. Wins to get a lot of points.
I like that. I like that play by Hunter. That's similar to what I did. But I also looked as well for like backups as well, like that I knew like if there was tandems that were gonna split, like now, like if you go down to like Florida, Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight, I would pick up, like if somebody takes Bobrovsky, I would go get Spencer Knight because I know they're gonna maybe split shares. Unlike in like Tampa where Vasilevsky is gonna get like a majority of your starts. You go find like Jake Ottinger, I know is going to get starts down in Dallas. Jake Allen's going to split time at Montembeault up in Montreal. So it's going to, you look for the tandem and maybe try to take the backup guy.
Yeah, he says he got Jerry and Campbell very late.
I mean, those are solid. I mean, I don't, everybody knocked Campbell. Jari was good last year until, I was never sold on him in the playoffs, but I will say he's changed my mind with that Game 7 performance, especially playing with an injury and almost having the Penguins get past the Rangers in that round. But Jack Campbell's a solid goaltender, especially fantasy.
All right, cool. Well, that kind of does it for me on hockey talk. I was going to ask you a little bit. We talked about a little bit in the beginning, but what do you think of the Giants? Like, I know you're thinking the aggressive play calling. Saquon looked pretty good. Like, what are your thoughts here as after game 1 yesterday?
I mean, I liked what I saw. I mean, obviously, you don't want to get out, down, 13 points again.
two out of there.
Yeah, I mean, like, if that's the one thing I gotta say, I mean, you gotta come out with a better start. I think, again, turnovers, but I like the way that Dable got in Jones's face, especially on the sideline. It got him motivated to get going. I mean, they discussed what they saw there, and Dable wasn't happy. So I like the fact that he wasn't coddling. He's like, look, you got to make better throws. You got to make better decisions with the football. I like that, and Saquon getting in the zone and playing. I like what they're doing there, and they got to get him more involved. I mean, 194 total yards from scrimmage, 68-yard run. That's the Saquon Barkley Giants fans know, and I think their rush defense was really solid. And you know what? Teams got a winning record, and they won their first opening game since 2016. So I mean, you got to be happy
on the road too.
Exactly.
Right?
On the road in Tennessee, a lot of expectations for the Titans coming in. Obviously, they missed the kick. So what? It ain't ugly. It's got to be ugly. This isn't college football. There's no ranking points. A win is a win, and your record says you're 1-0.
Yeah, and I loved seeing that they held Derrick Henry to only 80 yards, no touchdowns, or was it 80 yards? I don't know. I'm thinking, questioning what I remember reading.
I thought it was 80. I think it was only 80 yards.
Is that right?
I think so. Let me double check let me check the stat line.
All right, I'm pulling it up to where you at here. Giants. Because I thought it was 80. Derrick Henry, 82 yards.
82 yards.
Yeah, look at that.
So look at that. I mean, against one of the best running backs in the league, and you hold them to 82 yards. That's a good day.
Most dominant, and the linebackers seemed like they were really out there being aggressive and hitting and trying to really contain that run game that Tennessee relies on, that we saw last year, of course, and forcing Tannehill to have to throw the ball in the pocket because that guy doesn't run around either, kind of like Joe Burrow. So I don't know. I just thought it was overall really good by the Giants. A good game, aggressive planning, which is exactly, I think, what they're going to have to do all season long is be aggressive on those game-winning situations, because those situations aren't going to come around too often probably. But I think when they do, I really do feel like Dabo has to be, hey, we got to go for it. We got to go for these 2 points. We got to figure something out.
Absolutely. I mean, I like the aggressive play calling. If it doesn't work, so what? Go win games. This isn't about moral victories. There's no time to rebuild.
Right.
I like that. I like the change of attitude. Losing isn't an option anymore. Go out and win the football game. That's what he's paid to do. It's what these guys are paid to do. And it's not about establishing draft picks and this and that. Go win football games. If you make the playoffs, great. If not, so what? But you have to take a step forward and show progress for fans and show progress that this team is doing the right things, what they've done through the draft. And you know what, maybe they can get rejuvenated. And it seems like the defense and the players are, right by Dable, because, he went up and down the sideline after they scored, and he asked the defense if he, going for 2, and everybody said, yeah. And then when he put the 2 fingers up to Saquon, he's like, he was getting the ball. So you got to love it.
Oh yeah, and I think that's such a difference for that Giants organization now. Is now you got a players guy, right? A players coach, essentially, is what we call it, and versus Joe Judge, who was almost a dictator type, and it was his way or the highway, essentially, aka the couple of retirements we had last year off season, the guys that didn't really want to play, and you could tell by the attitudes. I think that's perfect. I called on him yesterday. Bodkins was doing a review on his show for week 1 last night, and I called it the MCDC kind of mindset coming into play for Dabble for the New York Giants.
I like it. Yeah, I mean, that's the right mindset you need to have, and you just got to come in there and do the right thing. And you know what? If it works, it works. If it doesn't, so what? But at least the players will respect you for doing it and going for the win and not settling for the loss.
Yeah, I can tell you what, you're gonna be a lot less badmouth if the players respect you than they don't. So.
Yeah, but like I said, so what? If they lose, so what? At least you were aggressive.
You show you weren't going to win it. That's all it is. As long as you're not kind of run some dumb play out of nowhere, but I was the perfect play to run for that 2-point conversion. I felt.
Oh, it is. Tennessee's on their heels. Defense is on their heels. You march the field, give it Saquon, boom, in the end zone.
Yep, and you're there. And you're there.
So,
yeah. You got any content dropping here with Let's Talk Sports or anything?
So definitely, Let's Talk Sports. Dan and I'll be back shortly. We're gonna just figure out a day when we're starting a hockey show back up, and then check me out fullpresshockey.com, where you can find the latest stuff as we head into training camp, and I'll be writing for Sports Interaction again this year, doing some hockey betting. So you want to check that out. Some rumor stuff will be coming up as well, so check that out as well. And yeah, training camp right around the corner.
You said Sports Interaction?
Yeah.
For hockey betting. Oh, yeah. I'm saving this one.
Yeah.
Save. All right, cool. I got that thing bookmarked. Hey, I'm all about it, man. Kansas here. We just legalized sports betting as of September 1st. So I'm all hopping onto it. I got myself a good bankroll, and if the Dane Broncos could freaking pull this out, I'd have a pretty good bankroll after this. So,
well, I had a nice bankroll on Saturday after I won $100 on Appalachia State. So
there you go.
Yeah.
You think they're gonna win again this week? Or cover at least?
They should win. They should beat Troy.
I think so too. I got them covering at least. So
they should. Yeah, they should at least cover. They should at least win too.
Cool. Well, Jim, I'm gonna let you go, man. I appreciate you joining. Next week, hopefully Nick will be on again, but we'll talk some more hockey as it leads. Actually, is that the start next Monday?
It'll be the 24th. Will be the start of preseason.
Okay, so leading into that week. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought for some reason I thought it was closer to the 23rd next week. I don't know why, but cool. Yeah, we'll definitely be leading into that week here going into play. And then it looks like Hunter's logging off. Thanks, Hunter, for joining. Appreciate you. Hopefully catch you next Monday. So, but yeah, Jim, appreciate you joining again. Always glad to learn some more hockey. I'll let you know if I might have a fantasy draft, but done by then. So I'll let you kind of review it and we'll see where we're at.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to talk some hockey with you.
Definitely, Jim. Appreciate it. Thanks, Jim.
Hey, have a good night.
Well, you too, man. Jim Biringer, guys, coming into play. Full Press Hockey. Go check him out. Let's Talk Sports. You will be here weekly on Buffoon and Bodkins for NHL play. Let's see here. Waiting on Jonathan Grishman here. I'll let him know. Ready whenever, and we'll talk some baseball coming into play. But it looks like the Broncos are trying to charge back up here. Russell Wilson with a couple missed throws, 4th and goal again. Now they settle with the field goal. Man, I need this win here. I don't know. I'm kind of shocked that Seattle's taking it to Denver, but I'm also surprised that Denver's in this situation coming into play. I did not expect a team like the Broncos, who I have 10 wins across the board in the AFC West, to struggle against a team like Seattle. But there's more dog, it looks like, and Broncos are sloppy right now. How many penalties do they got? They got turnovers too. Yeah. Trying to find. I think the Broncos have like 6, 8 flags, something like that. Really, really sloppy stuff going into play. Very disappointing there. As far as week 1, though, I mean, my Kansas City Chiefs rocked it. 44-21 against Arizona. Can't really complain there. I think they were looking the cleanest team. Probably the Bills will be second coming into play. Of I guess week 1 on Sunday going to play. I was really disappointed in how the Saints looked. I thought the Saints would be a lot cleaner. I mean, they added some weapons into play, but I guess they do have the coach transition. So there's that. Oh, there's Bodkins. Yeah, dude, no problem. Hopefully you got that W going into play. But yeah, we're still waiting on Jonathan here to join, and we'll talk some baseball here. But as we got the GameCast going here, like I said, the Broncos just scored a field goal, make it down by 1 point with 6:13 left on the clock. Like I said, very surprising game coming into play for me because I did not expect it to be this competitive. Oh, I might be able to get Bodkins on here. That link here. But I don't know. I don't know what your guys' thoughts. I thought fantasy wise, it was some big weapons that I expected, some weren't that performed. I was very disappointed in Devontae Smith, like we talked about. CeeDee Lamb, the Dallas offense was disgusting all night. But it looks like Tony Pollard should have a pretty good role in the play. Again, kind of how we thought around here. But yeah, I don't know. Just it was as week 1 is a very weird situation coming into play for NFL week 1. Giants winning. The Browns pull it off with the last minute kick. Hey, that rookie kicker they got, he might have a leg after all on him. That was pretty solid the way he came into play. Pretty big kick. The couple field goal blocks, right? Fitzpatrick, Minka on the Pittsburgh side. With that was a great block, by the way. That was clutch. That's much needed. I see Bodkins here. It's loading here. Oh, maybe not. Are you there?
Hold on 1 second. Like this Bluetooth, I gotta shut my Bluetooth off, I think.
Oh, okay.
Discussion about what makes him great.
All right, we'll give him a second. We'll bring him back in here in a minute. All right, let's see here. We're kicked it off here. And it looks like Seattle starting on the 30, guys. Seattle starting on the 30. Geno Smith's been pretty impressive here going to play. Oh, let's see. You there, Nick?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. How was the game?
We went 1-1, so we won the B game, and then we lost the A game in a nail biter. So.
Man.
Yeah. Proud of the boys though. They stuck around, hung around. They were down the A team was down 10 at halftime. Just got it within 1, and it just seems those type of games where like you just can't quite get over the hump, and it was just like that. Like we'd get it within 1 and just could never take the lead. It was just one of those type of games. It seems like that's what's going on in this Denver game. Yeah, I've been kind of.
It's not even that. This Geno Smith guy all of a sudden came out and played and is leading this Seattle offense that we thought wasn't very good, or the Broncos defense is just crap today. Because I'm very disappointed in the score to begin with, being only down 1. Denver's down 1, but Geno Smith out here looking like an NFL starter.
That's what happens when you don't wear a New York Jet uniform. You actually look like a good quarterback.
Yeah, Jets, Giants, and then the Chargers, because he did back up to Phillip Rivers for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, you got guys like Will Disley catching TDs, passes. Jared Judy, of course, is good. Colby Parkinson, who is catching TD passes from Geno Smith. Geno Smith is out here balling it up. He has 195 yards, 2 touchdowns, 23 for 28. and just literally just rolling over everybody.
I saw the Broncos fumble twice on their own on the about to score on the one.
Yeah, they were about to score on the one, they just didn't make it. They went for it and couldn't get past the hump there. Broncos got the ball back, 4:02 left. They just got a punt. So now they're going to be starting back at the 22, Denver 22. So we'll see if Russell Wilson can get down there and get a couple more points here at least. But Russell Wilson still having himself a game. He has 315 yards, 24 for 35, one TD. So Judy over 100 yards, 102 yards. So Judy, the Broncos offense really isn't looking bad. They're just struggling to get anything going on the defensive side.
Yeah, I mean, but Russell Wilson got a chance to be the hero here, right? Like you're down 1 point with 4 minutes left. This is why they brought Russ in. So let's see what happens here in this last 4 minutes.
All right, as we go into play. Hey, how was your fantasy weekend, or I guess yesterday, fantasy day?
Awful. So in our league, I had Dak Prescott, and that you saw what happened there with Dak.
Yep.
I don't know did you have Ryan on? I'm sure he talked a lot of crap about how he had Justin Jefferson. So not only did I have Justin Jefferson, and we saw what he did. And then in my big money league, I had a 20-point lead until Jerry Jeudy showed up tonight and put it to me.
Oh, really? So Jeudy took you out of this one. Jeudy got me the win here with this 20-point game.
Yeah, he had Jerry Jeudy and DK Metcalf I was going up against tonight. So no favors here. No favors.
Yeah, I'd say I was talking about it earlier. One of my biggest disappointments was CD Lamb, and that just 4 points here in a full PPR league, and just wasn't good. I tried to offsell him for like Devontae, put in some big names with it, and I couldn't get any biters, even to a Cowboys fan.
Yeah, that whole Cowboys offense looked like absolute dog crap last night.
Right. I think the only guy worth anything was Pollard and Schultz.
Yeah, I mean Zeke didn't do anything. Dak got hurt. CD didn't, which obviously affected CD Lamb. The Cowboys in general just looked like a big pile of stinking poop.
Yeah, they did. That was, I was really hoping for a better game, but that was overall not a very, very fabulous game. It was something similar to what I kind of saw Thursday, was just a pretty average down game.
Yeah, for the Rams it was awful on Thursday, but I mean the Bills looked like an absolute wagon. Josh Allen looked like the perennial MVP caliber player that he is. Speaking of MVP caliber, I mean your Chiefs went scorched freaking earth on the Arizona Cardinals yesterday. Pat Mahomes said, "Hey, y'all thought I needed Tyreek Hill? Nah, Tyreek needs Patty. Patty don't need Tyreek," and they just went on him.
Oh man, you want to talk about a statement game? Like week 1 for them was just blowing out a team who we all think it's playoff capable, right? With Arizona, especially when they're healthy. But yeah, but you really saw too, those injuries really affected Arizona yesterday, that they just couldn't keep up with, even trying to triple team Travis Kelce at times, and he still got the ball.
Yeah, I mean, there's I talk a lot about there's levels to this on my UFC show. Well, there's levels to this in the NFL, and Andy Reid and Patty Mahomes are about 18 levels ahead of Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray, and they proved it yesterday.
That they did. That was a blowout. Hey, it looks like you're just in time here. We got Jonathan Gershman here into play to join us here. Talks a little baseball here as we round up the Denver game here. Jonathan, what's up, man?
How's it going, guys?
Jonathan,
good,
what's
man.
up, my man?
Doing good, doing good.
Nick was able to join us here in this last segment of the show as he's attending to a couple different sports games. So, it's always a fun time. So, how are things been? How's the thing with the teams going into play?
It's going good, going good. We had a few teams going in action this weekend. We had my older 14U team. They finished in third in their tournament this past weekend. Probably should have finished a little bit better than we did, but for the first tournament of the season, we'll take third place. Pretty happy with that. Everybody's getting going right now, so it's kind of that shorter season in the fall. We're trying to work on some things and get everybody ready for the next level when they're getting that point where the high school girls are getting going, the boys are getting going. So it's really fun, really busy going time right now.
You got a lot of showcases coming up, showcase tournaments coming up.
Yeah, we have our the high school girls are actually playing another showcase this weekend out here in Dallas-Fort Worth. So they're beginning their preparation week tomorrow for this weekend.
Awesome. That's always a good time there.
Oh yeah,
those are fun times. So we haven't talked, I guess, since last week. We talked. Toronto hit the lead down to 5.5 games to the Yankees. The Guardians, the Twins have dropped down to 5 games in the divisions, and we knew that they needed to win the division to be able to make it to the playoffs. So the Chicago White Sox have taken second place with 3 games. The flip-flop between the Mets and Braves last week was insane. And the Dodgers extended their lead in their division to 20 games now, which is ridiculous. But, I mean, what are your thoughts here in the American League, man? Like, or should the Yankees? I know we keep saying the Yankees shouldn't be worried, but should the Yankees start worrying a little bit?
They should be worrying a little bit. I don't know if they're in full panic mode just yet, but there should be some sweating going on in the Bronx right now. And again, you had a 15-game lead. I mean, again, as we mentioned, the conversation was, who are the Yankees playing in the World Series? And that conversation was happening in June. Was it going to be a Subway Series, Yankees and Mets in the World Series? 15-game lead, and now we're down to a 5.5 lead for the Yanks. So I'll say when they'll start panicking when that lead gets down to 2 or 3 games. 5.5 right now, they can still hold it off. I think with 20, I think we're about almost 20 games left in the season right now. So there's still some time to kind of stretch that lead out. But I wouldn't say panic mode yet, but I think people in the Bronx should be sweating and concerned a little bit right now.
Yeah, I fully agree. They're 6-4 of the last 10. I mean, the run differential, of course, isn't taking any toll. It's still at 206, but yeah, I don't know. It keeps getting lower and lower every time we look at it, and I'd be a little bit starting to worry a little bit about the 1 seed going into play. Or I guess not the 1 seed anymore, right? Because isn't Houston the 1 seed?
Houston's still the 1 seed, yes.
Yeah. So that's even more worrisome with Houston still balling at 7-3 the last 10.
Yeah, Houston has
quite the run differential, but yeah.
Houston has a 6-game lead over the Yankees for the number 1 seed. So I mean, I unless the Yanks get hot these next 20 games, I don't see them catching the Astros.
Yeah, so that's even more worrisome. Is who are they playing in the wild card, right?
Right.
They're going to play. Is it going to be Seattle? Is it going to be Toronto? Or is it going to be Tampa? And they don't want any of those 3 teams.
No, and Seattle had a good series against the Braves, taking 2 or 3 over the weekend right now. And not a lot of teams out-hit the Braves, and they did. They out-slugged them. Mm-hmm. And Braves are one of the top 3. I think they're top 3 or top 2 in home runs in Major League Baseball. And the Mariners absolutely took them to the woodshed and really got them on the slugging part. So Seattle's a scary team, and they're making that run right now that I thought, as they made that trade for Luis Castillo, I said that was their move to say we're all in to make the postseason this year and be ahead of schedule than what they were supposed to be. I think they were supposed to be competitive in 2023. They got really good production earlier this year, and it got the front office to say, hey, you know what, we're going to buy in, we'll make the move, and let's go make a run for the postseason now. So that's a scary team to think, and Toronto's the same way. Toronto can hit, they can pitch really well, and so they both those teams match up really well with the Yankees in the postseason in that wild card round.
Yeah, because Seattle's 7-3 the last 10, and Toronto's 8-2, and these guys are just on fire, the right momentum at the right time, And that's just a bad thing, especially for a 2 seed that's going to be the Yankees going into play. You don't want momentum in the playoffs, especially wild card games. Look at the Royals right back in 15 and 14. And then well for a lot of teams. So so I saw the Braves, they took first place earlier in the weekend, and then it looks like they're back in the lead of the wild card as the Mets took it back over, mainly due to that Seattle series. But what are we seeing flip flop all the way through till the end of or beginning of October?
I think so. It's going to go to that last series. The Braves and Mets play the last series of the season in Atlanta. So that series is going to be the deciding factor on who wins the division. I don't think the lead will go more than at least getting into that. I think it's going to stay within 1 or 2 games between those two teams. It could be the Braves ahead, Mets. It's going to stay about that way the whole time here. I don't think that lead will get any bigger going into the last series. So you're going to see some jockeying between the Braves and Mets, and this is going to be exciting. That's the best part about this time of the year that makes me so giddy about that. That's the only time I'm happy that we get into the fall season. I know football. I love football. I'm always, I'm a Who Dat Nation member, but I look forward to the fall season because of October baseball. So we get to that point right now where the games are getting that exciting feeling, that postseason feeling, and it's going to be that way all throughout the rest of this month for the Braves and the Mets. Games are going to be the most important going into that series, so it's definitely going to be a close finish between those two teams as they jockey for the division crown.
So who do you want to play? Let's just say the Braves win the division, and you're a Braves fan, right? So who do you want the Braves to play in the wild card game?
I don't want I will say this, like how I look at it as I want to face the Dodgers or Mets in the NLCS. So I mean, if it means facing the Cardinals or facing the one of the wild card teams, I'm fine with that as long as I get the Mets or Dodgers in the NLCS. I want to be able to have that matchup of 7 games with those two teams, one or the other. I think I think we can handle the Mets in that opportunity to do so, just because we match up well. They've had our number this season because of little dink hits at times. They have the pitching of DeGrom and Scherzer that has overpowered the Braves, but they haven't been able to really out-hit or out-slug us like some of these teams that have beaten us consistently. They get the little dink hits that have, and again, it's part of the game, and I get it. And if you get on base and you score runs that way and you connect hits together, the Mets do that very well. They're one of the best teams that can connect hits in the lineup, top through bottom. So, and that's why they've been very successful offensively. But when it comes to the power side of the game and the consistency, that's where the Braves have really done their most damage this season. So I want to have the matchup of the Mets or Dodgers in the NLCS. So again, if it comes down to it, facing the Cardinals or the Phillies or Padres, one of those teams in the wild card round, I'd rather those teams early on instead of having to face the Dodgers or Mets early in the postseason at that point.
Gotcha. Nick, you got anything?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Jonathan about the new rules, the base pass being wider, the pitch clock, and limited on the shift. I want to get the opinion of a professional hitter. As a fan, I'm a firm believer on hey, hit them where they ain't. If you're a pull hitter, learn to hit it the other way. But I can't hit the broadside of a freaking bar, Jonathan. So
I'll say this. I'll say this. I was an opposite field hitter for a lot of my career. So, I mean, my strategy when I played was early in the game, I want to shoot the ball to the right side. So teams couldn't shift on me. They tried to shift at me because I'm a first baseman. I was a big hitter. I was a power hitter at times. So they tried to move me to the right, to my pull side being a right-handed hitter. And I'd shoot the ball to the right center gap. And that's what hitting is. If you're a professional hitter, you should be able to do that. And this is one thing that I argue about a lot of the people who sit there and say, well, they're not able to do that. That's not what they are. These are professional hitters for a reason. They can hit the ball to the right side. They're being told by the analytical guys in the front office, that's not what you're best at. Your best is to pull the ball, hit the ball 450 feet over the fence. And that's if you strike out doing it, so what? But your job is to pull the ball. That's what you do best. Go do it. We don't want you to hit the ball to the right side. We don't want you to do that. We want you to hit the ball as far as you can to the left side, or if you're a right-handed hitter, or as far as you can to the right side, or if you're a left-handed hitter. So the aspect of, well, these are professional hitters, they should be able to do this. They can. They all can do it. They just don't, or they either don't want to, or they're told don't do it. So now you're opening up with the defensive side of taking the shift away. And you're basically rewarding these guys. Well, hey, go pull. Go. I mean, you're gonna get base hits. You're gonna get doubles, and you'll hit home runs. The Joey Gallo will go from batting 190 to 240. He'll get 50 more points on his batting average. Guys who are batting 250, they'll go back to batting 275 or 280. Guys who are batting 270, they'll be batting 300 again. And so I think we're kind of rewarding the aspect of bad hitting by taking the shift away. It's part of the game. It's strategic. So I'm not a favor of taking the shift away just because, again, if you're being told by analytics to pull the ball, why would I not move my defenders in that position where you're going to pull the ball and say, hey, do what you're supposed to do, go opposite field on that. So I don't like the aspect of the shift being taken away. The bigger bases, I get what Major League Baseball is trying to do by making the bases 18 inches now instead of 15, saying that we want more action, we want the stolen bases back. But again, we've had these statistics for 15-inch bases for over 140, 150 years. Are we going to now put a little bit in question of these stats if the stolen bases go back to guys stealing 50 bases on a regular basis now? I don't really understand that side of it and how they're going to make that better. The pitch clock, I think it's stupid. I know they're just going to talk about saving 20 minutes in a ball game. If you're having an issue with low attention span and people watching the game of baseball, 20 minutes is not going to make a difference on saving the clock on that. So I think you're trying too hard, to change the game for the better. And when you try too hard to change the game for the better, you're changing it for the worse. And I think this is going to have a negative effect for a long time when you get to the grassroots of these changes.
Yeah, saving 20 minutes on a 3.5-hour game, it's going to do a lot for somebody already ready to be done.
The Yankee Red Sox games are going to be blowing by, right? 3 hours and 20 minutes, 3 hours and 40 minutes is going to be a whole different ball game than 4 hours it was, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because when I was at the Brewer Stadium, granted, I was tired from the drive, but the first night, I think it ended up being literally a 3:40 game, and I was like, holy camolies! I love me some baseball and all, but can we go? But then again, the pitching part doesn't really put into action of time range. It's all the bombs that everybody are hitting, all the long run innings that you're having. Like when your ball games, as a lot of scores have been late, 10-7, 9-6. It's in that range. So of keeping the length going. If they really want to shave off time, let's just go Little League style and put in a run rule. And you have to switch out every 7 runs.
Oh my God! I don't say that. That would absolutely just give me a heart attack watching baseball that way. But here's the thing too: if we're talking about if we're going to go a little bit deeper, let's cut commercial time out. Then let's cut a little bit more as far as, again, they won't do that because that's the revenue, that's money that's coming in for the TV side. But cut the commercials down a little bit longer than at that point, because ESPN has the longest running. Their game times usually are the longest games that take place on a ball field, because it's national media at that point. So they're going to have their commercial times. They're going to have their breaks. They're going to have if you really want to cut time down, take some of the commercials out then and say, hey, let's speed the game up that way. Because that does take that eats a lot of time, between innings. Is not just the pitch clock itself during the game itself. It's, the waiting game of these pitchers. You go to a national televised game, the pitcher throws his 5 to 7 pitches in between innings, and he's standing on the mound for an extra 30 seconds, waiting for the everything to get back going is there. So it's a lot more than just saying we're going to speed the game up when the action takes place. Take the stuff away that's off the field that has nothing to do about the game and make the game go faster that way.
Do you think with the hitting shift being eliminated, they're trying to take, as I call them, they're trying to take the nerds out of actually playing baseball and put them more into the strategy of maybe actual like pitching and hitting. But do you think they're trying to take the nerds out of stuff?
To an extent, I do think that they're trying to make it baseball again because the analytics.
Denver just missed their game-winning field goal.
Denver did? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Hey, I mean, that's part of this right now is we're having the game on. But no, they're not necessarily. You cannot remove analytics because these teams have invested so much money on the analytical departments, and they've invested so much time in understanding the analytical departments. So you're never going to get rid of that side of the game anymore. That's going to be involved. I think they are trying to cut it down to make the game more simple because if you try to break the casual fan now doesn't understand analytics on top of it. So if we're trying to help the casual fan, we have to simplify the game again. And so that's what they're trying to do, trying to simplify the game. So to your question, to an extent, yes, they're going to try to get the hard part of the numbers simplified and out of it to make the game better for the casual fan. But you can't do that because you've already spent 20 years on the investment of the analytics and what these guys have really put their time in and try to explain to these players how to do this. So you're going to need another 15 years to really get the game back to what it used to be to get to that point.
Yeah, I just one last question. Are we going to robot umps? Because I saw something or read something that minor league or some organization is putting like pretty much the robot umps for the strike zone, and I absolutely hate that. I believe in 100%. Yeah, the umpire, they got some bad calls I'm sure you know from guys who's pitched left-handed, right-handed, two-fingered, one-fingered, that, but you got to adjust. It's on the batter and the pitcher to adjust to his strike zone. It's all elements of the game, and I feel like that's going to be going out here probably the next, 5 years or so. Is that something that's happening?
It is. They have the Atlantic League is an independent minor league that Major League Baseball became affiliated with. I think it's been about 3 or 4 years now, maybe a little bit long, maybe 5 years. They became more affiliated with them to test different. So they've been testing the bigger bases in the Atlantic League. They were testing the as you say, the robot umpires, and essentially what it is you still have the human umpire behind the catcher, but he has a device that when the pitch is thrown, the ball crosses the plate, he looks at the device, and the device says strike or ball. And then he makes the call from there. So that is essentially what it is now. And the Major League Baseball for the last few years has been trying to find a system to make it good for Major League Baseball and Major League Baseball ready. That was one of it. There was another one another league that was basically having the umpire behind the plate still, but on the big screen on the big board behind center field, behind the outfield, the call will flash on there saying ball or strike with the strike zone. Here's the ball. Here's the dot. Ball or strike right there. There was another one that another league that the umpires still make the call, but you can challenge. You have the instant replay challenges. For certain calls in a game, you can actually challenge balls and strikes in some leagues. So there's different rules they're working on and trying to fine tune to see what is Major League ready. We're heading in that direction, and I'm with you again. Everybody who I talk to and ask me these questions about what's going on in baseball. I'm a traditionalist. I'm a baseball purist. I love the human element. Even Angel Hernandez has his moments of being, appreciated, and I know not a lot of baseball fans will admit that part. But you have the human side of what this game is about. And, as you said, making adjustments in the middle of an at-bat to an umpire, making adjustments, by the pitcher to find the zone, to learn the zone. And zones change. I mean, they're human. They're going to change a little bit. You're going to see a little bit. But that's part of it. So I hope we wait as long as possible to get the robot umpires or the automated strike zone. But it's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of, it's not if, but it's when it's going to make its move to Major League Baseball.
I agree with you. I hope we wait as long as possible.
I hate it.
I'm right there with you, Nick. I mean, that's serious. I hope I hope it doesn't, but it's inevitable. It's coming, and it's just like I said, it's a matter of time.
It is. It is. Anything else, Nick, you got?
I'm good, my man.
All right, Jonathan, that's all I got for you today, man. Not much else really to talk about. You know, I'm hoping my Brewers here can pull through and knock one of these guys out. It was the Phillies earlier in the week, last week, and now it's the Padres again, sitting here 2 games out. So with the Brewers, right on their heels.
Well, and Nick's Cubs did us a favor today, beating the Mets. So hopefully my Braves can do their job. I need the Cubs to do another. I need to do this again another 2 more times this week, though.
I was going to say, I bet Jonathan's a bigger Cubs fan than myself right now because I'm not really. I haven't been following. I just know we beat the Mets today. I was like, oh, Jonathan's putting his Cubs hat on right now in his Cubs gear, hoping we take care of business.
Hey, fly the W. Fly the W.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Love it. Thanks, Jonathan, for joining, man. We'll catch you next week. All right.
Sounds good. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, man. Jonathan Grishman, guys. So go. It's always a great time to have Jonathan on, man. Well, Nick, anything here going on this week here for you outside of Let's Talk Sports stuff?
Yeah. So Wednesday, we got. We'll have our Week 2 NFL preview show where we'll be breaking down the games. Kenny and Craig will be giving some fantasy advice at the back end. We're going to have a little guest picker again coming in on that back half, making all the picks against the spread, kind of getting you ready for NFL Week 2. Obviously, I got the morning wrap-up show in the morning on Wednesday. And then Sunday, the Head Kicks and Haymakers will be talking UFC. And then Sunday night, again, will be our Week 2 post show, NFL Week 2 post show, as we break down all the games and everything that happened, and just like we did last night for Week 1.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like quite the lineup here for you. I know I'll tune in after. Well, actually, it depends. So Wednesday, we got our show. I'm not too sure exactly what we're talking about on Sports Buffoons at 8 p.m. Central, but I'm sure it's going to be fantasy related, NFL related. Then after that, we're going to record our Week 2 preview for Chiefs versus Chargers right there and then, because we play Thursday night this week. So I'll try to tune in to. I like your Wednesday show you've been doing, or you did last week. So I'll try to tune in there. And then of course we'll be back Saturday on Let's Talk Sports with the AFC West chat with Dale, Rob, and I can't remember the other guy. Saved my life. He was really good. I'm sorry. I apologize, Raiders fan. I'll get you. I'll remember your name next time. My bad. Sunday, we got the pregame show with Let's Talk Sports. Nick, I believe you'll be on with me.
Yeah, I should be hopping on. I got to take my mom to the airport, so who knows what time that's going to be.
Hey, I'm always up for an adventure. We'll see what happens. So we got that pregame show on Sunday. Don't forget to miss out Thursday night post-game show. Jeremy B, Carlos, the Mad New Yorker, and myself will be giving the post-game show for Let's Talk Sports, and also Mike will be on doing a post-game for on Selling the Kingdom for a post-game for the Chiefs game on his reaction. So we got that coming up. Just lots of football content, guys. Lots of football content all the way through the Bodkins, the Sports Buffoons, Selling the Kingdom, and Let's Talk Sports. So make sure you guys like, subscribe, and go follow that. Hit the bell because we got a lot more content coming to play. So other than that, Nick, I'm gonna let you go, man. Hopefully you have a good rest of the night here, and we'll catch you later, man.
Yeah, I'm almost home now, Tanner. Appreciate it. Appreciate holding down the fort. Should be back at the house, normal time zone next week. I think. Who knows with this basketball schedule? You know, life of a father
a little bit everywhere.
And trying to have a podcast. You know what I mean?
I'm with you, man.
Yeah,
I feel the same way. I did games today and came home and I was like, well, I gotta do a show here. Let's get this rolling. So I feel you, man. So we'll catch you later, dude.
All right.
All right. That was Bodkins. So all right, guys. Everybody have a great week. happy week 1's done with. Let's get week 2 rolling. See you guys. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to the Buffoons and Bodkins show. Make sure you hit that bell, subscribe, and follow for more content. Swing over to the Bodkins show, subscribe and follow for him, and then also swing over to Let's Talk Sports Network and go subscribe to him because it's phenomenal for what he does, and there's a lot more to come on that channel between us as well. So make sure you guys do that. Thank you for watching.